Welcome in, Spartan fans, to this latest edition of the Michigan State Spartans Insider Podcast. I'm your beat reporter from Michigan State Spartans on SI, Aidan Champion. We're going to continue to talk football because it is just around the corner. Fans, I hope that you are excited for this season. I know there's fans out there that aren't feeling too hopeful, too optimistic about the Spartans going into year two of the Jonathan Smith regime, but I think you should be if the standard for you, the expectation is that to make a bowl game because I definitely think they will. And I think they have an opportunity to do it sooner rather than later in the season. We talked yesterday about Michigan State's home schedule, one that I think should have fans feeling pretty good. And today we'll talk about the away schedule, which is pretty tough. But the good thing about it, very front loaded. The back half of the away schedule, a lot more favorable. And if it gets to the point where Michigan State is scratching and clawing for bowl eligibility late in the year, you'll be happy that you have some of those away matchups. I mean, obviously you'd prefer them to be at home, but um, you these matchups in particular more favorable than the ones early on in the year. Those ones early on don't come until weeks 4 and 6. You've got a bye week, week 5, but you're home the first 3 weeks, and then you head to LA. You face USC week 4, your first Big Ten matchup, first away game. Going to be a tough one. USC expected to be on the rise. Lincoln Riley expected to bring this program back to prominence in its second year in the Big Ten. Been doing a heck of a job recruiting, really looking like things are on the come up for USC. Going to be a very tough game for Michigan State, and I think going to be kind of um, a reality check because I do think this team should start out 3-0. I think that, it's going to be a test, not just because of how good USC is expected to be, but also just because Michigan State, you got to make sure you don't get too comfortable, too spoiled with your early schedule. First three games at home, all of which are against two of them very inferior opponents. Boston College, a little more of a challenge, but one that I think you still should win. But let's say you go into this where, got to make sure that you are locked in, got to block out all the factors that could hold you back, whether that be the first away game, the fact that you're traveling out west for it, block out the hostile environment, the Coliseum. There's a lot of factors that will be challenging for Michigan State. And then, fortunately for them, they get a bye week. So if things go south, can regroup and get ready to head back out on the road to Nebraska, another team expected to be on the come up, to be better this season. Going to be another tough one. That is no easy place to play. And we know Nebraska all about football. Um, I have said that you'll be looking pretty good if you can split those two away games. I definitely think that the Nebraska game would be the more favorable of those two, um, in terms of your chances of winning, getting the road win, coming back home for UCLA for homecoming. But those two games, USC and Nebraska, that is ultimately going to, I think that's going to dictate a lot of your season. If you drop both those, you're coming back home. You're 3-2. Yeah, you're still you've still got uh, a winning record. You're above 500. You're still just halfway to a bowl game. You're home for homecoming, but there's a big time momentum shift there if you drop two. And, you know, that means a bye week. The advantage of that just goes out the window. So definitely, I think best case scenario is to at least win one of those games. You would hope for them to win both. I just don't see that as a reality. I definitely think, though, if you do manage to beat USC, then you might as well go and beat Nebraska because you'll be riding high from that. And you've got the bye week to build off it, get healthy. Definitely going to be a higher expectation to win that Nebraska game if you beat USC. And you don't want to think about this as a player or coach, but in the back of your mind, you've kind of got a safety net. You know, you're 4-0. You can afford a road loss especially when you know you're coming back home for your homecoming game against UCLA, which, two very even teams. UCLA not, gonna, I don't expect them to be, you know, a top five team in the conference. They'll be just like Michigan State fighting for bowl eligibility after nearly missing out last season. But after UCLA, you're back out on the road and you've got Indiana. Going to be a very tough game. Although Indiana, we don't really know what we're going to get. There's some turnover there, but the expectations are going to be high for them considering what they did last season with the college football playoff berth. Um, Definitely a team now that is trending upward. Um, and we know what they did to Michigan State in East Lansing last year. So gonna be a revenge game for the old brass spittoon, but definitely one of the harder matchups on Michigan State's schedule. Bloomington, um, that's gonna be another challenging place to play. And then fortunately for Michigan State, comes back, uh, albeit to play Michigan, which is, like I said, going to be a very tough matchup, but one that I think is a little more up in the air considering it's a rivalry game. Rivalries bring out the best in both teams. Michigan State tends to do well when except for 2022, 2023, but tends to do well when they're very much counted out going into their Michigan matchup last year, closer game. Um, I'm not taking anything away from Michigan before I start hearing any of that. I I said yesterday, and I thought that was complimentary enough, that I do expect Michigan to be better this season. I thought they were. I thought what I'm sorry, Sharon Moore did last season was impressive. And I think there's certainly high expectations surrounding this team, this Michigan team, and I think they'll build off last season. I think they'll still be right up there contending for a Big Ten title in a very tough conference. Anyways, we've talked already about the home matchups. We're focused on the road games, and then after Michigan, you go and you play Minnesota. Um, that one, I mean, no road game is easy in the Big Ten, but that is one I do think you got to win, especially, at that point in the year, you'll either be riding high off of a Michigan win or a loss to Michigan. Either way, you're gonna be playing for something at that point in the year, whether it be a bowl game or by that point, You may have already clinched it and are playing for something a little more. Who knows? We really don't know with this Michigan State team, but there will be some implications with this game, and the pressure will be on, especially because after it, you've got a bye week, which I think is another pretty convenient bye week. You get to it's later in the year, comes right before Penn State, your toughest game of the year. Rest up, uh, have an extra week to prepare for Penn State. Kind of reflect on the year so far. After Penn State, which is at home, your last game in Spartan Stadium, um, you're on the road for Iowa. Iowa, that was probably Michigan State's best game last season. I don't think people are holding them Iowa to too high of a standard for next season. Um, and at this point in the year, they may just be playing for pride, but that can be dangerous, especially at home for them. But again, Michigan State at that point in the year could be playing for something big, and um, one you gotta capitalize on. It's gonna be tough. Again, any road game in the Big Ten's tough. Um, but definitely one I think Michigan State can win. Don't think, Iowa is going to be anything great this season. And if Michigan State is, by that point, we'll know who Michigan State is. And if they're a pretty good team, you got to win this one. And then that's it. I mean, the last game is a neutral site game, but it's at Ford Field. You'll have a heavy home crowd there. Um, but the Iowa game will be your last road game. Um, or playing in another opponent's home stadium. I um I just think, like I said, the two that you really worry about, and then Indiana. But as far as where you are in the year, the two you really worry about, USC and Nebraska. Very fortunate for Michigan State that they get a bye week in between there. So you're not on the road 2 straight weeks. Um, you've got time to regather yourself. But I think what happens in those two road games will dictate a lot about Michigan State's season. Um, because we saw, things really derail last year after Michigan State's um, first 3 games. And it could very well happen this year. That will be the difference between this team and last year's team. So let me know what you guys think of this away schedule. Do you feel it's daunting? Would love to know. As always, thank you for tuning in. You can read all of our content at Michigan State Spartans on SI, where we're giving you tons of daily content. And you won't miss anything Michigan State football, basketball, hockey. Cover all types of Michigan State sports. And again, read it all at Michigan State Spartans on SI. Always appreciate your engagement, and I hope you all are having a great start to your week. Thanks.